696 SCU. That would be 696 one SCU boxes rather than five.
Um, by the way, this is where the whole golden age of piracy thing begins here, you guys. Hey everybody, this is V. I thought we would touch base about the cargo refactor. As you can imagine, I'm incredibly excited about it. And I have some thoughts that I want to share, but I thought we would go through this together. So let me just go ahead and I'm going to play some of this. This is an unusual way for me to do this. I know that I don't normally do it this way, but I'm going to play some of this, and then I'm going to stop and make some comments, and then we're going to talk about why I believe, and I don't think it should be lost on anybody, that the cargo refactor in 3.18 is going to spur on the beginning of the golden age of piracy in Star Citizen. So here we go.
318. The future is bright for cargo.
We're moving away from the simplistic implementation that we had before into something that's more of a real simulation.
So, first and foremost, it's still going to be magic poof at first. And what I mean by that is you're still going to magic poof your cargo into your cargo hauler. But what's going to be different is it's going to be physicalized individual box units, as we'll get into here. But the first thing I want to say is this new UI is interesting. One of the things I was hoping that they were going to speak to is that there was going to be, kind of a realignment of pricing or of, commodity availability. They don't really speak to that here, but cross our fingers, I guess, a little bit, right?
With the new physicalized cargo, it opens doors for us to give some new gameplay.
Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. You're gonna still magic poof your cargo into your cargo hold, but the difference is you're gonna be able to pull out your tractor beam and grab one of those boxes and pull it off. One of the things I was hoping that they were gonna do, even in this tier 0 implementation, was gonna be some kind of a snap to mechanic where they would, when you went to put the cargo back on top of the other cargo, there would be kind of some kind of a mechanism to kind of lock them in place again, so you could, theoretically take that nice crisp, box, setup that you have when the first magic poofs into your cargo inventory and rebuild it, because there's like a kind of an alignment type thing that goes on. But I didn't see any indication of that here. Very cool, this, though.
Cargo today is pretty basic. You go to a kiosk, you use an interface, you load your ship, it automatically loads.
There's magic poof right there.
You drive that ship to a port, and then you sell what you bought. But there's not a lot of interesting choices there.
Yes, that's very true.
With the current implementation, whenever we designed it, we did not have the tractor beams that we have now. What that meant is that you were not able to pick up and manipulate the larger 1 SU boxes. At the time, all that you could do was pick up the smaller 1/8 SU boxes, but this gave us a problem for piracy and looting in general, in that the really valuable things are sold and bought in these 1 SU boxes in higher volumes, but the only thing the player can actually pick up are the smaller ones. So what we had to do is a kind of hack in the cargo system such that when a vehicle explodes, instead of generating...
Now here's the thing that blows my mind, and I think they're saying this is... I have blown up many times with cargo. I mean, I hate to admit that. I've never seen... I don't recall ever seeing this at all. I truly don't. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, and I'm not saying that you may not have experienced it, but I know for a fact, I remember the first time I took my Freelancer Max to Lorville, and there was some kind of a weird issue where it wouldn't recognize the ship, and it was full of Quantanium. I had a full load of Quantanium in that thing, and I took it over to... and maybe it's because it was Quantanium that I mostly haul, and that doesn't necessarily show up. Like if you notice when you add refined Quantanium to the ship, it actually doesn't physically, you don't see it in there, although it is in there. So maybe it's just because I mostly haul Quantanium. I don't know that I've ever crashed with, say, Laranite or whatever, but I've never seen that before in the existing gameplay myself.
the larger 1 SU boxes on destruction.
This is
it
hilarious,
actually
by the way.
generates the smaller ones in this kind of gamey, magical way, so that the player can actually go pick up some of the boxes from the destruction.
Yeah, once again, never seen anything like that, and had I honestly known that you could do that to somebody, then even me, a sheep among wolves, may have tried to sneak do that on an alt account or something. Just
All right, let me give you an example. The C2 has 696 SCU, which equates to 5,568 1/8 SCU boxes that you have to loot. But the ship exploding should damage some of those boxes, and we want to have about 40 to 50% survive that explosion, so that's still about 2,000 1/8 SCU boxes.
But then there's server performance issues to consider. So what we've actually been doing is capping that at 10% boxes being generated.
Interesting. I mean, obviously, you just can't generate all those assets without it, without like raining. It's like a 30K pinata.
However, on top of that, it's an incredibly tedious experience, because now that's, if you were to do the math, about 400 boxes that you have to go pick up, and collecting all of those by hand without a tractor beam.
With the new system, we've gotten rid of the 1/8 SCU cargo containers. Everything is 1 SCU cargo containers. So in the case of the
right
C2,
now, if there's nothing that's going to drive people towards piracy, and we're going to talk about that a lot over, and one would think, because I am a sheep among wolves, that I am concerned or scared or worried about this. I mean, I'm not going to tell you I don't have some reservations. I mean, because this is going to be like a steroid-driven, just unbelievable wave of people who are going to get into piracy, specifically because of this screenshot. I mean, if you take a look at what's happening here, people are just going to blow ships up just to see this. And quite honestly, I bet you most of the cargo is not even going to get recollected. I think they've I hate to use the word mistake here, but I think you're going to find that people are going to be popping these pinatas left and right. They're not even going to be worrying about the cargo. It's just going to be for the lulz. I hate to be that way, but I think I kind of wish they would have did a little bit more of a boarding type thing here. And especially without some of the supporting systems in place, you're certainly not going to be able to rely on any kind of AI-based security or anything along those lines. You are immediately, as a 318, you're going to need to start doing zigzag routes. You're really going to have to start considering escorts, scouts. Anytime that you're carrying anything, you might also consider smaller cargo. We're going to talk about all these strategies. Smaller cargo runs, right? You're going to maybe those 46 SCU or 66 SCU ships, or maybe something that's got 72 SCU that's got a ton of firepower, like a Corsair or something, is going to be more lucrative. You know what I mean? To fly. I mean, maybe you're not. Without a lot of escorts, you may not consider, a C2. I mean, there's a blind spot above the C2 that, basically people can tee off on you with, if you know anything about that. And, you're only a couple missiles away from the loot pinata.
5,000 plus.
Every single one
That's
of those
so awesome, by the way.
is a real entity in the game, like any other entity in the game. It is tracked in the database as a persistent entity, now that we have the new persistent entity streaming architecture. And it means that now that they're entities that are persistent, they can be interactable. So now you can do things like use the tractor beams to pull them out of the cargo hold or put them into a cargo hold.
Hey, there's your 602. I don't know what you're doing with your time, by the way, like grabbing this agricultural supplies, but I don't even know what this thing's worth. It's like there's your 2 AUEC. You might put 4 of those together or 5 of them together. You might have 10 or 15 AUEC. Woohoo!
Well, it also means that whenever we do ship destruction with the new system, we don't have to generate anything. Instead, all that we do is we take the entities that were already created and we just simply detach them from the cargo hold and let them float in space.
Yes, this is
now,
crazy.
We still want to have some of that explosive destruction. So there's a certain amount of variable amount of that cargo that is destroyed on ship
By the way, I'm sure they're doing some kind of developer magic to attach a fixed camera to an object here. I would love to have that as an in-game tool. Holy mackerel! Maybe you could have a bunch of those planted around that the Mako could be kind of monitoring or something. Holy mackerel! This particular scene is really cool.
destruction.
Actually giving you back somewhere, it's actually 0 to 90%, but that's calculated every time your ship explodes. So what happens then is now we're actually hitting that 40 to 50% number on average.
This means that both for players that want to reclaim the cargo that they lost on ship destruction.
Oh, here come the pirates. You can see, they got the funny helmets on. They got the, they've blown up the caterpillar. Apparently with a cutty.
Or for pirates that want to scoop up their ill-gotten gains, then they'll have an easier time to get at it, and there'll be more value there.
Oh, the salt will pour right here. A1, it's so funny. I mean, Avenger 1 has done a couple of videos about this. It was, I will listen to one of his videos, I think it was a couple days ago, and then later on this came out, or where he was talking about how people are going to need to get ready, and he's not wrong. I mean, and I am 100% an industrial base. I'm not an incompetent combat pilot, but I'm certainly not not a combat shut-in by any stretch of the imagination. But you absolutely, fundamentally, if you are in my community, you're more than likely a miner. These days where you just used to go and just fly around aimlessly. And I'm not saying it may not get back to that again, but there's going to be this ramping up where people are just flying around, blowing up anything that's cargo. They may scan you first to see if there's any fun to be had in it, but they may not. I mean, there's going to be just a lot of people that are preying on people, and you really need to be aware of it. And you really are going to, more than likely, understand that it's going to be more the exception than the rule of you just kind of flying around and aimlessly. And I'll be the first person to admit, I love doing it. I just like logging on and just going mining and dirt to dirt, don't think about it. But certainly when I'm doing my Quantanium runs to take them in, that may be something where you need to have, hey man, we're doing runs today. Let's get our combat guys, organized, and let's think about it that way. So there is certainly going to be some short-term implications. As piracy is going to ramp up immensely. It'll probably it'll get over a hump, and it will maybe cool off a little bit, and you may find times, but I'm right off the bat, this is a massive change to Star Citizen, and there's some other mechanics I wish were in there, but this is certainly the beginning.
When they try to do so.
There's also the new commodity kiosk flow, which is a step in the right direction for helping you understand what you're buying and what you're selling and what's available at the places where you buy and sell commodities.
This is what I was talking about. I kind of wish that there was at least maybe they talked about an underpinning or a changing of the way that Quanta works for supply and demand or pricing or, that type of thing. I mean, obviously the UI looks much cooler and, certainly different. And we'll have to see how that plays out. But I will say, I do wish that they would have talked about there being more supply, and other potential ways to, to make money with cargo, because the risk is just shot through the roof.
It's the new UI. It's the new building block UI, so it should be a lot easier to understand and gives you a graphical representation as you're buying and selling of how much space that you have on the ship that you're buying and selling into. 318 is not the end of the cargo refactor. There's lots of stuff that we're in the design process for right now.
And I mean, some of the things that you may not be thinking of are your persistent hangars. They're going to have cargo lifts that can take things into your hangar and out of your hangar. There's going to be eventually organizational hangars and these other things where you may have massive amounts of stuff stashed, that type of thing. But there's going to be a significant change. I mean, eventually you're going to have, large boxes, potentially like these 32 SEU boxes, like the raft halls, the larger ones that say that the Hull A hulls, those types of larger boxes are also going to become physicalized eventually as well. It's interesting to see, like, they didn't speak to like the Hull A or the Raft. Like, are there, I don't know, are you going to be able to open those bigger, like, kind of corrugated boxes on, and then see the physicalized ones in there? That part of it's going to be interesting to me.
Including manual loading and unloading, as well as automatic loading and unloading. We're also looking at some big box cargo missions that separate the cargo from the hauling professions. So that's something to look for.
I don't, and help me out here. Separate this out. I don't exactly know what he means, and then maybe it's something pretty simple, but certainly one of the things that I'd like to see is, instead of having there's a difference between trading, right, where you have to purchase it yourself at a rate, haul it, and then sell it, hopefully at a profit, not being turned into a loot bin along the way. But there's also the idea where, like, I'd like to see the reputation system, like where you start out like doing these handbox missions, but eventually maybe you get to like a 10 SCU or a 12 SCU or a 14 SCU or a 25 SCU, like, and slowly but surely build up to where you're hauling 66 SCU in a freelancer or something along those lines. And where you don't have to invest your money because you've built reputation with the company. They're trusting you with the cargo. Based on your reputation.
Forward to, we have a lot more content coming that use these new features. We hope you enjoy it in 3.18.
And as a coda to all of that, Chris Roberts actually came by my desk the other day, and we talked a bit how it was unfortunate that we even have to allow players to lose 40 to 50% of the cargo. And we talked and decided that we would try to come up with an interim solution on our path to physicalized damage that would allow us to leave the husks of ships behind on vehicle destruction instead of just exploding them and erasing all the content.
Now, here's the thing that blows my mind, okay? Because I know that we were talking about this exact thing like 2 years ago. So, it's nice that Chris is, and I mean this in the most respectful sense, but it's nice. It's like, I hope he doesn't mean like Chris just dropped by his desk a couple days ago and they just thought of that. I mean, this is something that, whether or not technologically it was capable of, but certainly the whole concept of the derelict husk, the whole concept of disabling ships and having those be in various states of degradation, that seems to be, you would have thought that wouldn't be something where Chris showed up at his desk a couple days ago and like, hey man, hey, by the way, you'd think that was like, it should have been part of the plan, man. It's easy for me to sit in this chair and say it that way, but it's just, hey guys, come on, that certainly should not have been a bridge too far in the, when you guys were sitting around maybe whiteboarding.
This would allow players to explore the ships and find the cargo and physically move it off the husks of the ships, rather than just generating a percentage of the boxes on destruction.
So this is, I'm going to leave it here. I want to speak to you guys really quickly about the fact that things are going to change significantly. And I speak to my audience specifically. You guys know that this is an industrial-based channel. We do industrial-based things. I would really encourage you to watch some of the Avenger 1 stuff. And I know, listen, PvP is not in our wheelhouse. It's not what we want to do. And now that they're slowing our ships down and they're going to, there's a very good likelihood that any of us are going to be eating torpedoes. And sometimes, it's not going to be, they're always now going to be able to make the argument that it's for piracy, but in many times, they're not actually going to mess around with, they're not going to get their little hats on and float around an EVA and pick up 6 SCU worth of agricultural goods, 1 cargo tractor beam at a time. But trust me when I say it's going to be used to justify an enormous amount of just blowing up ships randomly. My point is, be prepared for that. It is what it is, especially when this thing first launches. It's going to be, you're going to need to have more organized cargo runs. You may not necessarily have the same level of autonomy just running around that you used to have before. Do I think that? I think it'll scale up. I think it will find a natural balance point. I think that there will be peak times and off hours where you definitely have gotten away with it. But I do think that I mean, if anybody goes to Jump Town and then gets peppered up because they get killed, I mean, that's on you, honestly. I mean, that's coming from the biggest sheep, one of the biggest sheeps, in the game. If you don't take us, if there's a blockade on a station, and people are getting stop the blockade runners mission on the other side of the aisle, and you just load up your C2 and just roll on in and get spanked on your way in to say bring medical supplies. That's on, I hate to say it, but it's on us, man. We need to learn what our countermeasures are and understand that right now the systems aren't in place to bail us out, even in Stanton. So there's just going to be a lot of nuke tubing going on. There's going to be a lot of missiles that are being thrown, and we have to be prepared for those. The golden age of Star Citizen piracy begins now, and you guys need to be prepared. And so do I. And and yes, it's going to be a touch salty, but it is what it is. But hey, I've probably spoken enough here on this Friday afternoon. I am going to be doing a ton of videos about when we are the sheep, you know what I mean, and we have to run from the wolves. What are some of the ways that we can maybe avoid just being around the wolves in general? And we're going to be speaking about a lot of zigzag tactics. We're going to be speaking a lot about the using small numbers, but numbers nonetheless. Potentially what the right escort ships are. Skirmishes versus fights. Is going to be a big part of it. And realistically trying to find our way in this new world where people are going to be openly far more hostile because you are, as a cargo carrier, a loot pinata. And they don't seem to have lent it towards more disabling ships. I mean, people are just going to blow up your ship for the lulz, and it's just one of those things. And we're just going to have to it's a new normal we're going to have to get used to. So anyways, I hope you guys are having a great Friday. I truly hope that you're all well. Please take care of yourself, and I will see you all around the verse.